All right, today we're going to talk about numbers, and we're going to talk about numbers that are the ancient Egyptian variety. So we did the ancient Egyptian writing, which is called
Hieroglyphics.
Sweet. And today we're going to do their numbers. So in ancient Egypt, they had some things in common with the way we did numbers. They still traded to have a new piece every time they got to 10 of something. So when they got to 10 units, they traded for a 10. And when they got to 10 tens, they traded for 100. And when they got to 10 hundreds, they traded for 1,000. And when they got to 10 thousands, they traded for a 10,000. And when they got 10 thousands, they traded for 100,000. And when they got 10 100,000s, they traded for 1,000,000. The same way we do. But things were a little different because, for one thing, their shapes were different than ours. This is what the shapes to make the numbers looked like in ancient Egypt. For a 1, it was a straight stick. For a 10, it was called, they said, a heel bone, kind of like an upside down U. For 100, it was a scroll, which to me kind of looks like a very fancy drawn 9.
Me too.
For 1,000, it was a lotus flower. That looks like this. For a 10,000, it was a bent finger, like someone going like this. For 100,000, it was a tadpole. I like to imagine that someone came up with that one because they were looking at a pond and they were like, how many tadpoles are in this pond? It must be a massive number. And then when they were thinking about massive numbers, like 100,000, later they were like, yes, let's use the tadpole symbol for that. And 1,000,000 was a man holding his arms up, and some people say in astonishment, which is like surprise, and some people say maybe in prayer to the gods. Like, oh, great gods, bring me 1,000,000 of something. Or it might have been astonishment, like, oh my goodness, 1,000,000 of something. So, when the ancient Egyptians wanted to write numbers, they didn't have a different shape for 2. To show 2, you had to draw the number for 1 twice. To show 20, you had to draw the number for 10 twice. If you wanted 3,000,000, you had to show the number for 1,000,000 3 times. Which means that all of you now officially have the power and the ability to write numbers in ancient Egyptian. I'm going to show you one and see if you can decode it. This is a number in ancient Egyptian. Ready? So, the top is where we start reading. And that is our biggest number. Give me a thumbs up when I say what our biggest number is. Is our biggest number units? Is our biggest number tens? Is our biggest number hundreds? Is our biggest number thousands? I see many thumbs up. Now show me with your fingers how many thousands. Okay, so there are 2 thousands in this number. Let's write it down. We know it's 2,000 something.
Wait, actually 3.
1, 2, 2 thousands. Under the thousands, next would be hundreds. Hold up with your fingers. How many hundreds do we have? Yep, 3 hundreds. Under our hundreds are units. It's a little hard to count the math there. How many units do we have? Our tens. I said the wrong number. 1 10, 2 tens, 3 tens, 4 tens, 5 tens, 6 tens, 7 tens. So 70. And you already told me 1 for our units. This number is 2,371, written the way the ancient Egyptians would have. They start at the top and head for the bottom. If you start with thousands, you know there's no possible chance there could be millions later, because they would have been further up. I want to show you one more thing, and then I'm going to send you on your way to experiment, okay? Because this is a work that works best for experimenting. What about fractions? The ancient Egyptians worked with fractions as well.
What?
When they wanted to write about fractions, they used the symbol that means a part. It's kind of the one that I think of as looking like a little mouth or like an almond-shaped
I
eye.
thought it was an eye.
This means part. So if you wanted to write 1/3, you would say part out of 3. If you wanted to write 1/10, you would say part out of 10. If you wanted to write 100, you would say part out of 100. But what's weird is they never wrote numbers like 2/3. They didn't have a way to write those. If you wanted to write 2/3, you would have to write this number twice or do something else weird and strange. Instead of writing 2/3, let's draw 2/3. 2/3 is like, nope, that'd be 3/4. 2/3 is like this. Instead of coming up with a way to write 2/3, in ancient Egypt, they would have said it is 1/2 and 1/6 at the same time. Some of you have encountered that when I've asked you math questions and you've been like, oh, it's a half plus some extra stuff. And what I always say to you is, oh, when we're doing a fractions question, we try and say it using just one shape, right? Give me a nod if you remember that. I'm like, no, don't show me halves and sixths together. Tell me how many thirds. Can we make it all in thirds or all in sixths? In ancient Egypt, they didn't care about that. They said halves and sixths together sounds great. Let's do it. So to experiment with this today, pick a couple numbers. Try and write them. Maybe roll some of our math dice or dice that you get from a game. Roll those, make a number, see if you can write it in ancient Egyptian. Maybe get the wooden hierarchy, that's the material with the millions cube, and lay it all out and make labels for it that match the Egyptian way. That would be a really cool way to expand our work. And if you did it really, really fancy and it looked beautiful and nice, I would be totally willing to laminate that and add it to the work. If you want to follow up in another way, you can. Folks at home, bye.